first is to thank the government of Rwanda for the very timely approval. Because the security situation was evolving, which meant that the lives of those UN staff and their dependents was threatened. They could have become casualties of the fighting. But by the speed of the decision-making by the government of Rwanda, it meant that they were eager to help to secure free passage for these UN national staff. So they are Congolese nationality, but they are staff of the UN in Goma. Second was that the government kicked in motion a very elaborate preparation process to receive them. So you'll be surprised that by 6 a.m. that same Monday, the entire architecture of government was at the border in Rubavu side. From state security, police, you name that, medical personnel, they were all there. We also had colleagues from UN in Goma, from MONUSCO, present, who had crossed over as well. And so they come, they are identified, they are processed. There were buses, they were put in buses. I was also in Goma, in Rubavu as the head of the UN myself, to supervise the UN support to making this process effortless and smooth. And we were in Rubavu up till 6 p.m. yesterday. A total of about 1,832 UN staff and dependents. So this means them and their family members. And dependents were processed. In Rubavu, we had military convoys. There were buses that had been arranged, so they were taken in convoys from Rubavu all the way to Kigali at King Pele Stadium, where they were processed. At King Pele Stadium, the entire architecture of government was present there as well. All the key ministries were present. Even at Rubavu yesterday, the Minister for Minema and the Permanent Secretary were there physically present, in addition to other departments of government. At King Pele Stadium, the highest levels of government was present, coordinated by Minafet through the Permanent Secretary. Inspector General of Police was in charge of a cell. People arrived by buses. They were processed. Rwanda Convention Bureau made elaborate arrangements with various hotels. People were put in buses, taken to the hotels. I had significant numbers of my colleagues from different UN agencies who were also present, who were providing support. I cannot tell you how grateful we are as a United Nations country team in Rwanda to our government for the truly exceptional mobilization of capacities and resources of the government of Rwanda to support these UN staff come through. Because of the nature of the fighting, many of them don't have identity documents. They couldn't come with their national passports to identify themselves. Most of them just had their UN ID cards. Which hotel will you go to that will give you accommodation if you don't have money to pay? But the government made sure through RCB that they were placed in hotels, and more than 30 hotels in Kigali received and housed them, so they're here. And now we are working with our colleagues, the UN on the DRC side, to evacuate them from where they will take them back to their own country, to Kinshasa, so they can continue their work as a UN system. I think what is important for us as a UN in Rwanda is the willingness, the exceptional commitment, the presence of key institutions in government to make this happen in the spirit of a humanitarian support, to allow the UN system to continue to function, whatever the crisis context, and so that the UN is able to provide support to the displaced people and then to the refugees, wherever they may be in the context of this unfortunate conflict. So in the context of refugees, there's a historicity of refugee crossings in Rwanda. So as you well know, in the various refugee camps managed by Ministry of Emergency Management with the support of the High Commissioner for Refugees, we have close to 135 refugees. Majority of them are from DRC, about 100,000. In the context of this latest outbreak of violence over the last 1 week or thereabouts, my colleagues from High Commissioner for Human Rights who provide coordination on behalf of the entire UN system of refugees have informed me that very small numbers have crossed over. So we don't have the exact numbers. When I mean very small numbers have crossed over, means small numbers who have come and declared asylum. Because when you come and declare asylum, then the High Commissioner for Refugees takes over. So they work with MINEMA, under the leadership of MINEMA, to document, to process, and to give them documentation and place them in camps, either transit camps and then ultimately to a refugee camp. What we see, and the anecdotal evidence, is that there are still many Congolese who have entered Rwanda. Some have family members. So many have gone to stay with their families. So in that sense, we don't call them refugees because they have not asked for asylum. There are many of those with the means who are staying in hotels with their families. So you see quite a significant number in some of the hotels in Rubavu. Those we will not call refugees as well. We have a threshold by the High Commissioner for Refugees. If the number of crossings exceeds that threshold, then they can trigger a formal process for refugee support. The number of crossings that have asked for asylum have not reached that threshold. That is not to speculate that they are in Goma or they've gone to Uganda, we don't know. But speaking for Rwanda, we don't have those numbers yet. But what my colleagues have done and what MINEMA has also done, which is extremely commendable, is that MINEMA has gone out of its way to provide facilities in case they are crossing. So you don't want the crossings to happen and then you start getting ready for them. So MINEMA has done some fantastic work identifying locations, making the locations ready, water, electricity, all kinds of facilities that can take quite a significant number of refugees, a couple of thousands. Also making each transit centers ready to accept them if they cross. My colleagues in the humanitarian community, from High Commissioner for Refugees to International Organization for Migration, to World Food Program, to UNICEF, to UN Fund for Population Activities, have pre-positioned stocks. So in anticipation that people might come, you pre-position food, non-food items, quite a number of stock. They have pre-positioned those in case that there have been crossings. Officially, the numbers that have come in so far are very small, that have asked for asylum, and therefore we are not at the position where we trigger refugee support mechanism for the latest arrivals. But we already have close to 135 refugees in Rwanda that government of Rwanda is supporting, and UN agencies and international and national humanitarian organizations are providing support to them as well.
Regarding the UN staff members, how many have crossed to Rwanda?
I can only give you the rough totals with their dependents. My colleagues are not cleaning up the data, so I'm sure we'll have the figures maybe later today, exact numbers of staff. But those that we evacuated yesterday from the border and brought them to Kigali and placed them in hotels, staff members and their families, all UN, is 1,832.
So as we sum up this interview, you say that the nationals of the DRC that are working for the UN,
correct,
they will be placed in other areas of the DRC.
No, when the principle of relocation is that if there were safe transport corridors in the DRC, they would not even have passed through Rwanda. That's how it works for your nationals. If there are safe transport corridors, you push them by bus or train or sea transport, you take them to another location that is not impacted by the war so they can continue with their work. So our role in Rwanda is to help the safe passage to Rwanda, for which we are extremely grateful to our government for its support and its facilitation. And then they will leave Rwanda and then they will find themselves back in safe areas of their own country. And then they can continue their work with their respective UN agencies. So it's not for me to say whether they be placed in different parts of DRC. That's outside my mandate. My mandate is Rwanda. The role of the UN in Rwanda, under the leadership of our government, is to facilitate that passage for them to find themselves back in their home country.